Welcome to another kingscrusher radio show. So on Playchess server, streaming to Playchess and also to YouTube. Okay, we're going to carry on this week with the series on Kasparov. Might have started this broadcast a little bit early for the scheduled 9:10 time, so I'll say hi all. And okay, yeah, I think there's been so many amazing games Kasparov has played, and would like to check out this one. Played in Brussels, 1987. So Kasparov's opponent was Luke Winans. Let me just check if I can get the right pronunciation. Maybe not. He was a Grandmaster in 1993 and Belgian champion in 1986. So a year before he was Belgian champion. He's 53 right now and he's still alive. His last FIDE rating was 2545. Very strong player. Let's see what happened in this game. So Brussels. By the way, if you're following this on YouTube, I'm experimenting with a new backdrop. It's actually from when I used to play at the Sutton Congress at Easter time. I was playing actually Basman. You can see me in the background playing Basman. I actually drew that game. I hope the backdrop's okay. I've been using that in some videos, last few videos. Okay, so anyway, yeah, let's have a look at this game. So d4 from Luke Winans, and we see knight f6. Actually, let's just connect to Livebook and add a kibitzer. I'm using Stockfish 8. Okay, so c4. Yeah, book moves. Well, in the Nimza engine, but now we have Queen's engine. d5 is the most solid move you can play here, I believe. It looks the most solid and classical. Just d5, not giving too many imbalances. Knight c3. Kasparov chooses bishop e7, bishop g5, pretty standard stuff here. So Queen's Gambit decline position. Tartakower variation, b6. This is the Tartakower defense with b6. So Tartakower, not only a very witty person with loads of quotations, this is a major system still being played quite a lot today. b6 is very logical to do something about this. c8 bishop. So we have c takes d5. This is one of the more common moves. Knight takes is usually played instead of e takes. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes. This is all pretty standard so far. Black ends up potentially with hanging pawns. Now we have the hanging pawns. These two pawns side by side, like hanging pawns, and in theory, as a generalization, player with against the hanging pawns will try and fix them down, maybe undermining later, and we'll try and win them later. But trying to fix down their mobility is a goal, and for conversely, the player with the hanging pawns trying to maximize their dynamic aspects. So we see rook c8. There's this nasty pin. It looks pretty theoretical. Actually, it's probably very similar to Spassky, a Fischer-Spassky game in the 1972 World Championship. This pin looks remarkably similar. I think bishop b5 might have been played there, actually, in that Fischer against Spassky. Was it game 7 or something? But here bishop e2 was played, and actually black Kasparov resourcefully unpins his c-pawn just by playing king f8. Yeah, it seems, yeah, why not just unpin like this? Interesting, just to put king f8. So I'm trying to make the most of these hanging pawns without this dreadful pin. Well, not so dreadful. We do really get them, the hanging pawns here. Yeah, black doesn't want to like take it any other way. I mean, because I think this is slightly better for white, for castles. So b takes is the right way to take here, to accept the hanging pawns from the opening. Now white castles, and okay, what is white up to? Black plays a5, and it looks as though this, well, it gives that b4 square. There might be an idea of plonking a knight to b4 soon. We have rook c3, but actually against rook c3, I'm not sure this knight a6 is too hot. Maybe actually it can be taken here. Actually, we see knight d7, and white is building up on that c5 pawn. So white's position looks fairly logical and solid. Actually, white doesn't seem to have done anything too drastically wrong here. But funny enough, it seems as though, yeah, black's equalised at least with the piece activity after this. There is definite piece activity, and is the queen slightly awkwardly placed here? Okay, so we have rook b3 against this. I'm not entirely sure what is black up to. Maybe a4. Okay, we have rook b3 trying to maybe trade off a pair of rooks, and black actually goes with the fixing of the pawns. This would seem some sort of positional mistake, you might think. But what is black getting? Black's getting a lot of pressure here. We do have one pair of rooks coming off, and in fact, instead of taking the queen here, which I'm not sure gives white anything, actually, even though the pawns are fixed, the activity of the black pieces is pretty good here on queen takes. So white does actually go for the a5 pawn, but swapping a5 for b2 here. If we have a look at this for a moment, I think black's actually fine here, or even slightly better. Example, b3 takes, black will be a pawn up. We can play this, and here I think it's too dangerous to do this because of check and knight c4 with idea are, well, bishop g4 is coming up and knight d2 maybe. If, for example, check, this looks as though it's a right pane for white anyway. This position, maybe bishop f5, it looks like a right pane. White didn't want to take on e7. Yeah, it just looks to be a real pain, that continuation. I mean, any other ways to play it? If we play rook c2, there might be some dynamic play here as well. Maybe knight c5. Yeah, I'm not sure what is happening here with white's play. I think b3 we can just actually even take here because this pawn is a killer, or here. So this position doesn't look too hot either. Even if that blockade happens, it looks fine for black. So this is a critical position. Maybe it's queen takes a5 was played instead, and we have now this dangerous passed pawn. Of course, white has a passed pawn as well. White has that blockade, and might be threatening now something like knight c6, and this is dangerous with the king there. There might be like a check there if the queen leaves the diagonal, and if not, also this is dangerous, by the way, if the queen hangs around. So the king tucked himself away with king g8, and now we have rook a1, knight c5, check, queen a3, another naughty pin, queen a3. Is this annoying? Rook b6 is played, but this time the king's far away from the queen. So how do we get out of this pin? Bishop d1, g6, bishop c2, bishop d7, a3, queen d6. protects the queen. Okay, it's about equal here. Now, an interesting tactical move, bishop a4, just to try and get rid of the light square bishops, which happens after takes rook a6. It's a tactical way of swapping off bishops. Black's got a little bit of pressure. a3, c3. This pawn looks a bit dangerous now. It's blockaded. Queen c7. Now, maybe, yeah, following up with rook a7 and maybe rook b7 later. We have rook b1, rook a7, queen e8, and now rook b7 here. But yeah, we're trying to get rid of this blockader with rook b2, but this is stopped with rook b4. So can this pawn ever be unblockaded? We have in this position, okay, king g7, g3, knight. It's interesting. G3 is an attacking player's friend. You know, it creates light square weaknesses. This is an attacking player's friend, but Kasparov has only got knight, queen, and rook. How can he exploit the light squares? There's two things to try and potentially exploit here. These light squares and this passed pawn. Can somehow they mix together for a lethal combination, while the knight is ready to hop in to the light squares energetically with tempo if needed. Sometimes not here. Knight e6 does actually threaten potentially to take and then pounce in with queen c4 if white's not careful, because any knight takes, we have c2, so the queen comes to the rescue to stop any infiltration like that on c4. But now these light squares are subjected to scrutiny. That's kicked away. It goes to e4. Then we have king g2, rook a7. This blockade is not going anywhere, is it? And again, at this position, move 41, it's also kind of apparently technically equal. Actually, things are pretty stable. But we play on. Queen e5, queen b6. Now this could be a fatal mistake. Actually, queen b6. It might be the first fatal mistake of the game, giving black a big thing to play for. Possibly, it seems the best move might be queen d3. Because if, say, queen f5, there's f3, and we got that pin, and it will be okay ultimately, even with this tactic. Let's have a look at this crazy tactic. White should be okay here with rook d4. Yeah. So actually, this is going away from the king, which is another kind of attacking player's friend. You got piece away from the king, some weakened light squares, and this pass pawn here. So this is a third aspect to consider. Now, if the rook moves, I think white would be fine with queen d4. But there's a brilliance concept, and I remember this years back. This game, it's really a brilliant idea, remarkable idea, and it starts off. This is a very, I mean, this must be one of Kasparov's longest, combinations ever. Can you see black to play here? So what would you play with black? So black to play. Okay, it's a big combination actually, so the first move that I'm testing on is fairly pointless. But if you did find it, that's good. It's the start of something big, huge, gigantic. So threatening kind of mating combination. Queen f2, if the king moves queen g3, or king moves here knight g3, mating 2. So f3 though leaves 2 pieces now hanging, right? 2 pieces now hanging. So can you guess move number 2 now? Black to play. You've got 2 pieces hanging here. So for 100 points. Black to play in this position, what would you play? Actually, this is not leaving a rook hanging necessarily. It's so strong it doesn't leave the rook hanging. The rook, this is a clue, would be immune after this next move. Basically, the rook would be immune. It's so powerful, this move here. Okay, I'm going to show you. It's actually not knight d2 but knight g5, because actually the rook is immune now. If we take care, it's apparently a forced mate, because the knight's actually guarding an escape square, right? There's a forced mate in 14 with check, check, check. Now if here check is mate in 5, after check, 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 check. So that's actually apparently a forced mate in 14. Queen takes c2 check. Yeah, I showed you king f1. Oh, king g1 it's actually quicker. We got just check. And if you had check, 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 mate. So it's a forced mate actually. If queen takes, it's a forced mate. I showed you this just to run this out a bit. What was the maximum resistance? I think I showed you the maximum resistance. Did I? No, the maximum resistance is not king e1. If you want to stretch this out, king g1, it's still a forced mate in 11 here. Check. Knight f3 threatens a mate in 3 with queen g1, queen g2. Whoops, queen g2. And then queen d2 mate, and actually black is, I think, almost defenseless. It's try rook g4, which just pans it out a bit. It's still a forced mate in 8 here. Well, it's a knight up anyway, don't have to actually prove it. But anyway, so to cut a long story short, yeah, you can't take this rook. White can't take the rook. Okay, so he plays hg, but alas, you know, our blockade, white's blockade rather, our opponent's blockade, Winant's is blockade, is being lifted, alas. Queen takes c2, and black hasn't even lost the rook. We have check, and the amusing thing is about this, this is another forcing sequence, which although not mate, it does something really horrible. Here, in this position, there's something very horrible that black does, which is queen takes f3, so leaving the rook again to be taken, but it can't be taken, I believe. If takes, then there's a forced mate in 11 with check, and here forced mate in 10 with hg, threatening queen h5 mate. And even if check, f6, then say check, king h6, and the threat of f5 now, checkmate, or queen h5, is difficult to stop. You can't stop both. Yeah, you can take one out, but you can't take the other. You can run, but you can't hide. Okay, so that'll be checkmate there. So again, it's after this. It seems impossible to take the rook. So but actually, this did happen. It did happen. Check. Because I've just shown you a computer move. This is the computer move, which is a forced mate. I've just shown you a computer move. Actually, Kasparov played something else here, which is also really strong, and nifty, and it is also basically winning. He played. It's an alternative. H takes G. It is the computer move. He played actually H5 check, and this all runs with check with an amusing conclusion. After here, check, check. Black does something you might consider a bit strange. Check. Now the king can't go here because it runs into that skewer, right? With queen takes e3. Yes, you might say there's rook d4, but then c2. So the king actually decides to go to c7, but we reach an amusing finish after check. Black just takes the queen, believe it or not, and ends with c2. And rather elegantly, this rook can't do anything about this pawn. It's funny in position. There's nothing for white to do against the c2 pawn. Yeah, and it left a vivid impression at the time when I saw this game years back, because I thought it was quite nifty, the whole thing, just to get this position. I hope you maybe find that as well, that it's quite nifty to aim to just get the queens off for the pawn queening. Yes. And so we can try and draw some conclusions from this game. Kasparov, conclusion number one, Kasparov around that time in 1987 was playing openings even with hanging pawns. The Tartakower variation served him well. He did a resourceful unpinning earlier on with king f8. Later on, he resourcefully lifted the blockade on his passed pawn. And another conclusion, not necessarily you have to go for a mate then if you've got a dangerous passed pawn, just make sure your passed pawn is queening. Well, there's a few conclusions you can draw from it, but it's based on fantastic calculation as well. Okay, so let's go on to another game. I hope you enjoyed that one. So another game, let's have a look at another that I wanted to show you this evening. Now this is Zuga against Kasparov. I'll just load this up. Zuga against Kasparov. Again in Zurich. Oh no, that was in Brussels 1987. This is in Zurich 1987. Now beat Zuga. Who is he? Last FIDE rating 2397. I Am Zuga was the Swiss champion in 1989. He's still around, 55 years old. Swiss champion in 1989. Alright, let's have a look at this. So, c4. Kasparov plays knight f6. I've also noticed a lot of times Kasparov plays g6 against c4, just with a sort of idea of getting some flexibility later to put the knight on e7. But he doesn't here, he plays knight f6. Knight c3, c5, e6, and it looks logical just to play for d5, and we've got a Tarrasch set up. So yeah, I mean, with the dynamic pawn structures are an attacking player's friend as well, because it's a lot of times about piece activity, getting some good piece activity even with the black pieces. And I mean, this is looked. I feel this is looked down on nowadays by the super grandmasters, the Tarrasch, because of, you know, structurally it's a bit dodgy. This position for black, structurally, we have both sides castling. It's not that popular. I mean, you know, it's not as if I've interviewed all the super GMs and asked them, do you think the Tarrasch is a bit dodgy? No, I'm just assuming that because they don't play it, that they might find it a bit dodgy compared to other things. So, okay, so bishop g5, we do get this isolated queen's pawn. But this actually turns into something else in this game. H6, bishop drops back, and it is kind of a nice looking blockade for the moment. Rook e8. In fact, what does live book say? I think it's bog standard position. Bog standard. Rook c1, bog standard move. Bishop g4. h3. This has all been seen before. All been seen before. This has been seen before. Now, quite often queen a4 is played in this position, as well as what was played. White is attracted sometimes to, basically, in this sort of position, to sometimes just take on c6, which, although it seems to fix the isolated queen's pawn scenario, giving a little friend here, the problem is there's a blockade square on c5, which white usually targets next, and he does so, knight a4. So this is the idea. Bishop f5, bishop c5, trying to get rid of the dark square bishop to loosen c5. Bishop d8. Kasparov actually retreats his bishop away, doesn't want that. And okay, his piece play at the moment, you can see he's got the e file and the b file to work with potentially. White now plays bishop d4, and it's technically equal, this position at the moment. So yeah, this is equal for the moment. Yeah, knight e4. Nothing too dangerous about this position. White seems to be having a good firm grip on things. f3, knight g5, trying to maybe provoke h4, but that isn't played. Knight c5, not yet anyway. Queen e7, e4. This seems annoying to black that white's got this e4 in tactically here. Now this is taken, and it would seem like a horrendous pin to allow. Let's just check this. This wasn't taken. Oh, sorry. Basically, it's not even about the pin. Basically, the rook is attacking here. If takes here, I think it might be about the pin. Takes. No, it's not even about the pin. Even better than rook e1. There's queen g4 there. And if here, then it's about the pin. Yes. Okay, so anyway, basically the bishop just retreated instead of going in for that stuff. Although it might have, some might have been wondering, okay, just in case you were wondering, it just seems to tactically fail to take on e4. So e5 is played, and there is potentially h4 on the cards here as well. We have bishop b6. h4 is played, and now there might be some snags here. The knight didn't actually go to e6, which you might think. If the knight had gone to e6, I think, okay, white has a strong position, it seems. Knight takes. Now, if queen takes, there's rook takes c6, which is horrible. And if pawn takes again, this looks horrendous. Taking a little bit because of that c6. Queen b3 protecting a2, but c6. Yeah, it looks better for white. But Kasparov had another idea in this position. Which is looks like the engine's top move. I mean, this is Stockfish 8. This is what Kasparov played way back in 1987, but it's also Stockfish's top move. Funny enough, this guy Kasparov was really strong. I mean, seriously, black to play. I mean, wow. I mean, there's a move here which gives white a lot of problems to think about. Yeah. Can you see? I mean, I don't think I'd be able to find it. Can you see? Black to play. Okay, yeah. Well done if you've seen this. There's an almighty pin, well, it seems, on that D file in exchange for an entire piece. So pinning, sacrificing an entire piece, try and utilize a pin. So 96 would have a lot more venom, right? If this pin is... So that knight's taken. Queen takes G5, just leaving that pin. And the idea would seem, if black had another move, would be, for example, to take here and do some damage after that with, for example, moves like bishop c7 pointing at white's king. So we have queen a4 trying to unpin. Now we have check, king g1. And again, this bishop is victimized with this, trying to kind of, well, trying to get another pin here on c5 this time. So black's play is threatening to take here, to snap off that, and then take on c5. It's got enough pressure on c5 here. So white takes that. So we're left with an alternate pin now. And also we've got two pawns, remember, so this is an alternate pin. And you might think, well, hold on, can't we just like defend that piece? Yeah. How? Okay, if b4 as an example, then black could pick up another pawn, because I think it's too dangerous to do this because of bishop c7. The queen's away from the king, long way. And if rook f3, then c1 drops. But yeah, I mean, there's actually, the best way might be to defend c5, might be queen c4 actually. But even then, there's another pawn, and there's some problems to solve. This might not necessarily be theoretically winning, by the way. It's giving actually white with the advantage here, technically. But in the game, the opponent is, maybe, you know, the opponent's in time pressure and stuff. He plays queen b4. And now we have rook d3. So actually targeting g3 again. You might think if queen takes, then there's queen f4, and yeah, okay, so we have rook d3, rook f2. Okay, another pawn's taken, so it's now quite a lot of pawns. It's like 5 pawns for the bishop, well, for the piece. 5 pawns. No, it's not. Black's got 5 pawns. It's 3 pawns for the piece. White's got 2 pawns. 3 pawns for the piece. Queen f4. Okay, so there's 3 pawns for the piece. But we have now a remarkable idea. Rook takes g2 check. So if rook takes, we take the queen. So this exchange sack check. Now if king f3, this wasn't played, sorry, if queen f3, then check hits the rook. So the king actually went to g3, leaving white now 2 exchanges up, but for 3 pawns. So are the 2 bishops quite good here? Apparently, again, Engine thinks this is about equal, this position. But in practical terms, I think this is hard to play now, because white's king is kind of bare. We have queen h5. Threat maybe is just to put the bishop here for the moment, and then look on both diagonals. This one, and potentially come on to this one. We have queen g4, which doesn't help white. I think it's a tricky position to play, but apparently this doesn't help white because of the check. Queen f4. We have queen e7, and this bishop is looking dangerous with bishop e3 now on the cards. Actually, there it's looking dangerous. We have rook c3 parrying that, but now this diagonal is used with bishop b6, trying to get here with bishop c7 to pin that queen. The king moves out, but now queen e1. Yeah, the bishop's looking scary and coordinated. Now there's g1 is vulnerable. Rook c1, trying to defend that. So it's like, I don't know, it's like trying to juggle things. White is in a juggling act at the moment. Queen e6. Again, is this going to be a repetition? We have actually queen g3 here, but now this other bishop jumps in, and this is getting horrible. Perhaps best is this, but it's tricky. White accelerates the demise with that move, and now after queen f5, there's a big threat of queen h5 check in this position. You can see how these bishops are going around the corners sometimes, and here actually white resigned in this position. Okay, let's have a look. Why would white resign? Let's just pick some examples. Say rook c3. Maybe best is queen f1 here. Actually threatening mate in 1. If here. Threatening a mate in 3 with check and check here. Say check. Oh, not there. Sorry. This is hopeless. The bishops are lethal here, it seems, and like things are going to drop off. Don't have to check that any further. But it seems like rook c3 doesn't help. So rook c3 is a weakness of the last move, basically, because of this. Now, what if? Okay, so let's take some other examples. This final position. What if queen b8 check, king h7, and there's a threat again of queen h5 here. This is mating. Yeah, so this check actually didn't do anything. Just to show this construction, check. Now if here there's a check here, and then we just take the queen. Yeah, the bishop seems to be running riot by this stage. That check is pointless. Rook c3 is pointless. Queen h4. Let's try queen h4. I mean, I think this is going to be. There's no real defense. I think queen h4. We can crack this apparently with g5. Here we can play g4. Again, threatening queen h5 and queen h1. Queen h5 and queen h1. We've got that covered. If that went back there, then there's queen e5 check here, queen h5, and then mating. Yeah. No, if you think there's a defense in this final position, here you go. White's playing defend. You know, have a go. Let me know if you think your 2 exchanges up, but the king's bare. And there's 3 pawns for it as well, so although the bishops are amazing. Yeah. If you think there's a defense, I mean, I don't believe there is, because the computer says no. The computer says no. That's from a Little Britain thing. Okay. So there's no defense here. I don't know if you want to punt something, and I can refute it, I believe. All right. So anyway, conclusions from this game. Again, Kasparov plays like a dynamic Tarrasch defense. This was the time he was into the Tarrasch defense a bit. Oh, you want to try the check? All right. Okay. All right, we'll try the check. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, actually, we can just take that. Yeah, we just take that. That's a quick refutation. Anything else? Okay. So where was I? So conclusions. Yeah, the Tarrasch defense. Accepting the isolated queen's pawn. The isolated queen's pawn goes into a structure where the c5 blockade against, you could argue, fixed hanging pawns instead. And something weird happened with this pin later, that this pin was created, which led to another pin, which led to this exchange sack, which led to Kasparov getting a piece, being 2 exchanges down. But the king safety by this time was so damaged that the bishops were overwhelming the rooks. So that's the conclusion from this game. So I don't know. It's another dynamic illustration of things that can happen that are weird and wonderful on the chessboard. But yeah, king safety is the result. It's been compromised here. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed these 2 games, and hope if you celebrate Christmas, happy Christmas and New Year when it comes. Okay, thanks very much. Comments, questions, likes appreciated on YouTube later. Cheers then. See you next week. Thanks very much.